I didn't think anything of it when I first joined the gym. It was just something I promised myself I'd do once I hit 30. Stop drinking 3 nights a week, eat fewer delivery burgers, and finally get a handle on the slight gut that had started appearing in every mirror I passed. I wasn't trying to become some Instagram thirst trap. I just wanted to be able to take my shirt off at the beach without that little twinge of self-consciousness. What I didn't expect was him. Technically, we met in the worst way possible. I had just finished my first solo workout, and I was sweaty, sore, and incredibly aware that I had no idea what I was doing. My shirt was stuck to me like shrink wrap, and I kept glancing around the changing room like I was looking for a fire exit. I was trying to be casual about it. Untie my shoes, strip off the compression tee, maybe rinse off the shame of using the chest press backwards earlier. But then I bent down to grab my bag, and someone else's foot came into view right beside mine. "Hey, sorry to ask, but are you okay?" I looked up. And, no exaggeration, my brain forgot how to speak. He was leaning slightly, towel slung over his shoulder, hair still damp from a shower. Light stubble, dark eyebrows. That annoying kind of body that looks like it just grows on people who were born tall, lean, and annoyingly symmetrical. Not bulky, but defined in that casual, no-effort kind of way. I blinked. "Huh?" "You looked like you were going to pass out," he said, pointing at me. "You went hard, didn't you?" "Oh, yeah, I think I did all the machines wrong," I muttered, wiping sweat from my forehead. "Pretty sure one of them was just a chair." He laughed, and it hit low in his throat. "Easy, natural." "Yeah, I saw that. You were sitting backwards on the fly machine." "You saw that?" I groaned. "Yeah," he said, still grinning. "It was bold. I should have died right there." But instead I laughed. Because somehow he wasn't mocking me. There was something about the way he looked at me that was kind of curious. Not judgmental, not smug, just amused. Like I'd surprised him. "Look, I don't normally do this," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "But if you want some help, I'm a trainer here. I've got a couple open spots this week." "That obvious I need help, huh?" "You're enthusiastic," he said diplomatically. We kept talking. His name was Matt. He'd been working there for about a year. Used to box, but now mostly coached regular people like me. Guys who want to feel better and not injure themselves lifting laundry baskets. He joked. It should have ended there. But when I turned to grab my clothes, I must have dropped my towel because he reached to hand it back, and our hands brushed. That's it. Just a small touch. But something shifted. We both paused. His eyes lingered on mine for a second too long. And when I reached for the towel, he didn't let go right away. No one else was in the changing room. And maybe it was the adrenaline, or the way I'd caught him watching me earlier when I was trying to figure out how to adjust the leg press. But I stepped just a little closer. He didn't move back. I kissed him. I don't even know how or why. It was stupid and impulsive, and completely not me. But his lips were warm, and he kissed me back like he'd been waiting for it. For a second, the whole fluorescent-lit, tiled room disappeared. His hand gripped my waist. My back hit the lockers. We didn't say anything. It was messy, breathless, way too fast. But God, it was hot. Afterward, we just stood there, chests rising and falling, the air thick with whatever we'd just done. "You sure you still want that training session?" he asked, half smiling. And just like that, we'd crossed a line. Now it's been 2 weeks. He's officially my trainer. Twice a week we meet at 7 a.m. He counts my reps like nothing ever happened. And I can't stop thinking about that damn kiss. I showed up to our first actual training session wearing the most neutral outfit I owned. Plain black shorts, basic gray tee, no cologne. I had this dumb idea in my head that maybe if I looked boring enough, we could both pretend the changing room incident never happened. Spoiler, that's not what happened. Matt was already waiting near the free weights when I arrived. He looked exactly the same as before. Fitted joggers, sleeveless hoodie, hair slightly damp like he'd just rinsed off the morning. He was looking at his phone, but the moment he saw me, he smiled. Not like he was checking on a client, like he remembered everything. "Hey," he said, like it was just a normal morning. I nodded. "Hey." We started with warm-ups, jump rope, mobility stretches, some light cardio on the bike. Nothing crazy. And to his credit, he was professional. Polite. Focused. He explained each movement clearly, gave me space to get comfortable, corrected my form with a hand on my shoulder or lower back when needed. But that was the problem. Every time he touched me, light, purposeful, instructional, my brain short-circuited. His fingers would graze my arm, or he'd adjust my hips for a squat, and my body would react like it still remembered the way he'd pinned me to those locker doors. I told myself it was just physical, that kind of thing happens, right? One impulsive action, some leftover tension, and it fades, you move on. But this didn't feel like that. This felt worse, or better, depending on how you looked at it. I caught him watching me once when I was wiping sweat off my neck between sets. Just a quick glance, eyes trailing down, lingering too long. When our eyes met, he looked away immediately, but his ears went slightly red, so it wasn't just me. "Water?" he said abruptly, tossing me a bottle like he needed a distraction. "You're doing good, by the way. Better than I expected." "Thanks, I think." "I mean, you listen. Most guys come in here thinking they know everything already." "You're coachable." "High praise," I said, and took a long sip to cool myself down. My shirt was already clinging to my back. "So, is this weird for you?" He paused, pretending to check his clipboard. "Define weird," he said. I looked at him. He was still scribbling notes on my progress, or maybe just doodling to avoid eye contact. "The changing room. That kiss." He didn't look up. "Yeah," he said. "A little." "Okay," I nodded, unsure what to say next. "We can just ignore it, if that's better." He looked up then, and his face had that unreadable calm again, like he was weighing his words. "I don't regret it," he said finally, "but I do like this job." I didn't respond right away. My chest was rising and falling a little too fast from the last set, but my brain was spinning faster than my pulse. I didn't know what I expected him to say, some casual joke or a complete shutdown, but the honesty in his voice caught me off guard. I appreciated it. We didn't talk about it after that. For the next few sessions, we kept things strictly professional. He introduced supersets, showed me how to track macros, and even sent me home with a mobility routine to help with my tight hamstrings. I started looking forward to our workouts in a way that surprised me, not just because I felt better in my body, but because being around him, even in this careful, controlled way, felt good. And then came the Thursday morning that broke it all again. I showed up a little early, and the front desk girl told me Matt was still finishing up with a client. So I sat in the lobby, sipping my pre-workout, scrolling aimlessly through my phone. 10 minutes passed, then 15, then 20. I was about to leave when he came jogging out from the studio, breathless, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Sorry," he said. "Got held up." "No worries." He looked tired. Not physically. He always looked strong, but there was something in his face that made me hesitate. Like something had gone off inside him. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, too fast. "Yeah, just a rough session." We moved into the weights area. I thought we'd skip the chat and get into it, but halfway through our warm-up, he stopped me mid-set. "You free after this?" he asked, out of nowhere. I blinked. Yeah? You want to grab a smoothie or something?" I stared at him, confused. I thought we were keeping this. "I know," he said. "And we can, but I need to talk to someone. Off the clock." I didn't push. We finished the workout, and he stayed a little quieter than usual. No teasing comments, no light corrections, just focus. Efficient and quiet. When we were done, he handed me a towel, told me to shower if I wanted, and said he'd wait outside. The smoothie bar wasn't far, just a place 2 blocks down, the kind with organic this and matcha that. He didn't say much while we walked there, and I didn't ask questions. I just followed. When we finally sat down, protein shakes in hand, he looked at me like he was still trying to figure something out. "I broke up with someone last week," he said after a beat. I blinked. "Oh, yeah. It wasn't serious, really. Just someone I'd been seeing for a couple months. But it ended messy. She said some stuff that got in my head." I sipped my drink, unsure how to respond. Like what? That I was emotionally shut off. That I kept her at arm's length. That I didn't let people in. He paused, then looked at me straight. "And then I thought about you." My stomach flipped. "You don't even know me," I said quietly. He nodded. "That's the thing. I feel like I want to." There was a long pause between us, the kind that stretches just long enough to become something else. He looked serious, vulnerable even, and something about that look, the rawness of it, made it impossible to brush off. "I don't know what this is," he said, voice lower now, "but I liked that kiss. I like being around you. And I don't want to pretend it didn't happen anymore." I stared at him, my heart in my throat. "I want to keep training you," he added. "But not just that, I want to know you outside of the gym." That's when I realized this wasn't about a hookup anymore. And maybe it never had been. I didn't answer him right away. Not because I didn't want to, but because my brain was suddenly juggling about 5 different versions of "don't fuck this up" all at once. Matt just sat there, waiting. He didn't look nervous, just open, like he'd finally cracked something inside himself and was letting me see it. And honestly, I didn't know how to handle that. I'd gone into that gym wanting to drop 10 pounds and maybe stop hating how I looked in photos. I didn't expect to end up across from a guy like him, one who kissed like he meant it, and then weeks later told me he wanted to know me beyond reps and macros. "I didn't think this was anything," I said finally. "At first. I mean, it was just a kiss in a locker room, right?" "Yeah," he said. "But it didn't feel like just anything. No, it didn't." We sat in silence for a moment, the low hum of the smoothie bar filling the space between us. I watched the way he stirred his protein shake without drinking it, like he was bracing for something. "So what now?" I asked. He looked up, eyes locking with mine. "I don't know. I've never done this before, with a client, I mean, but I don't want to ignore it. I don't want to pretend like nothing's happening when I see you every week, and all I can think about is that kiss." I swallowed. My throat felt tight. "So we stopped the training sessions?" I said, half expecting that to be the next logical step. He shook his head. "No, unless you want to, but if you're okay with it, I think we can be grown-ups about this. I won't let it affect your sessions. And outside the gym?" His expression softened. "That's where I hope it does affect things." It was a bold thing to say, but the way he said it wasn't cocky. It was honest, hopeful. I didn't answer with some deep philosophical speech. I didn't say anything particularly smart either. I just nodded. "Okay." His eyes brightened just a little. He smiled, not in that flirty gym trainer way I was used to, but something a little more real. We walked back in silence. At the corner, I expected him to peel off and go back toward the gym, but he lingered. "Text me later?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah." He hesitated, then added, "And hey, thanks for not making me feel stupid about all this." "You're not stupid." We didn't hug. Didn't kiss again. We just stood there for a second, both of us still unsure what we were starting. Then he turned and walked off. And I stood there for a long time after. That weekend, we didn't text much. A few messages, nothing flirty, mostly just check-ins. But something about it still felt different. I caught myself smiling when his name popped up on my screen, even if it was just a "hey, how's your Saturday" kind of message. By Monday, I was looking forward to our session more than I should have. He was already setting up when I arrived. Foam rollers, kettlebells, and a few resistance bands. No clipboard this time, just a quiet focus I hadn't seen before. "Mobility day," he said, tossing me a band. "Low-key, but you'll still hate me for it." "I already do." I deadpanned, looping the band under my feet. He smirked, The session was normal, strangely normal. We moved through each exercise like we always had. Hip openers, lunges, shoulder mobility drills. He was professional, clear, focused. No weirdness. No lingering touches. If anything, he kept more distance than usual, and yet, every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me with that same barely there softness, like he remembered everything but was holding it back for both our sakes. Afterward, while I wiped down a mat, he crouched next to me. "You hungry?" I turned to him, surprised, now. "There's a spot across the street," he said. "Terrible coffee, great sandwiches. You free?" I nodded. "Let me shower first." He smiled. "I'll wait." The diner was tiny. Yellowed menus, booths with cracked red vinyl, coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since yesterday, but the sandwich was exactly as promised. We slid into a corner booth, both of us damp-haired and a little flushed from the workout. "This feels like a date," I said, unwrapping my sandwich. He raised an eyebrow. "Is that okay?" I shrugged. "Yeah, just new." Matt sat back, watching me for a second like he was trying to decide something. "You're not like most guys I meet at the gym," he said. "Most of them are all about bulking or cutting or showing off. You're just real." "Real sweaty," he laughed. "That too." We talked for an hour. About his job, my job, family stuff, movies, random gym horror stories. Nothing heavy, but something about it felt solid. Like we were building something slowly, and neither of us was in a rush to define it yet. And that was when I noticed his hand, resting just slightly on the booth seat between us, fingers brushing mine every so often. Not a move, just a presence. So I turned my palm upward, and our fingers laced without a word. That's how we left the diner. Quiet, casual, hands briefly intertwined before letting go outside. He looked at me like he wanted to kiss me again but didn't. "Not yet. Not there." "I'll see you Thursday?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "You still my trainer?" "For now," he said, smirking. "But I'm hoping for more than that." And the way he looked at me then, I knew he meant it. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because anything bad happened. Actually, it was the opposite. That night was the first time in a long time that something felt like it was starting, and I couldn't stop replaying it. The way Matt's fingers curled into mine across the booth, the quiet confidence in his voice when he said he was hoping for more than that, like he wasn't afraid to want something, like he wasn't afraid to say it. It was a nice feeling, a dangerous one too. I kept telling myself not to overthink it, that maybe we were still figuring things out, that just because a couple moments felt good didn't mean we had to slap a label on it. But I also couldn't ignore the way my chest tightened every time he texted, or how I found myself checking my reflection before our sessions like I was going on a date instead of going to sweat for an hour. Thursday came faster than expected. I showed up early again, 10 minutes this time, and caught Matt mid-conversation with one of the gym's older clients. A woman in her 60s, decked out in purple leggings and a matching headband, waving her water bottle around like it was a wand. "I keep telling him to stop being such a heartbreaker," she said as I walked up. "You're lucky, you know. This one's a catch." Matt laughed, shook his head. "Sharon, you're gonna scare him off." She leaned in conspiratorially and whispered to me, "Don't let him get away, sweetheart," before heading off to the treadmill. Matt looked slightly embarrassed. "She's not wrong," I said, grinning. "Shut up," he muttered, trying not to smile. But there was this quiet warmth between us now, something unspoken but completely understood. We moved into the studio, and everything about the session felt easier, lighter. We joked more. He let his hand linger when he adjusted my posture, and when we locked eyes during a rest break, neither of us looked away. "You're improving," he said, tossing me a towel. "You've been putting in the work." "I kinda like it," I admitted. "Feels like I have something to show up for." There was a beat of silence. Not awkward, just meaningful. "Yeah," he said, softer now. "Same." Afterward, I expected him to suggest food again or maybe coffee, but instead he looked hesitant, like something was on his mind. "You want to come back to mine?" he asked. He said it casually, but I could tell it wasn't an impulsive ask. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. Matt lived in a small apartment above a bookstore. Of course he did. Clean. Lived in. Nothing fancy. A pile of laundry on the arm of the couch. A bike leaning against the wall. A half-dead succulent on the windowsill. It looked like a place someone real lived. Not curated for Instagram. Not staged for guests. I haven't had anyone over in a while, he said as he tossed his keys on the counter. Not even a fitness influencer or two? He rolled his eyes. Hard pass. I wandered over to the bookshelf beside his desk. There were titles on anatomy, strength training, psychology, but also a worn copy of The Road and a few poetry collections that looked way too emotional for a guy who bench pressed for a living. You read this stuff? I asked, holding up a thin book titled Crush. He nodded. My sister's obsessed with Richard Sykin. She got me into it. I flipped to a random page and read a line out loud. Eventually, something you love is gonna break your heart. Matt leaned against the wall, arms folded. Romantic, huh? I looked at him. Kinda. It went quiet then, not tense, just close. The room suddenly felt a little warmer, a little smaller. He stepped toward me, slow, like he wasn't sure what would happen until he did. And then he kissed me. Not rushed like the locker room, not tentative like the diner. This was slower, deeper, like he was finally letting himself feel it. His hand cupped the side of my face, thumb brushing my cheek, and when I reached for his waist, he leaned into it like he'd been waiting for that exact touch. We kissed like that for a long time. At some point, we moved to the couch. We didn't talk much, we didn't need to. His body curled into mine like it belonged there. Not in a sexual way, though that was definitely in the air, but something softer, quieter. My head rested against his shoulder. His fingers traced lazy lines along my forearm. I didn't expect this, he said finally, voice low. Me neither. He shifted, looked down at me. You ever done this before? What? Date a guy? No, not really. He nodded, like he got it. I've did it, I said, but this feels different. It is, he said. We didn't define anything that night. No talk of, what are we? No strategy session for how to balance training and whatever this was. But I left his apartment feeling like something had changed. Like the door between us was finally open, and we'd both decided to walk through it, even if we didn't know where it led yet. Over the next few weeks, our rhythm shifted. He was still my trainer, still tough when he needed to be, still corrected my form, still sent me homework sets to do on my own. But we also started texting more. He sent me memes. I sent him photos of me failing at meal prep. He started calling me after work, sometimes just to say hi. And some nights, when we weren't training, we'd end up on his couch, tangled under a blanket, not even needing words. It was simple. It was good. But things never stay simple forever. One night, after a session, he pulled me aside in the locker room, the same one where this whole thing started. There's a client at the gym, he said carefully, one of the regulars. I think he might have seen us together outside. I froze. Okay? He didn't say anything bad, but he made a comment about you being more than just a client. I brushed it off, but you're worried. I don't want this to mess with either of us, he said, especially your progress. If people start talking... I nodded slowly. Do you want to stop? He shook his head instantly. No, I just wanted you to know. There was a silence between us, one of those turning point silences, the kind that either leads to something falling apart or something getting stronger. I reached for his hand, just a quick squeeze. We figure it out, I said. That okay with you? He exhaled, relief in his shoulders. Yeah, that's okay with me. We didn't kiss that night in the locker room, but we didn't need to. We'd already crossed the line. Now, we were just learning how to stand on the other side of it, together. 2 days after that locker room conversation, I started noticing it. Not from Matt, but from other people at the gym. Little things at first. A couple of trainers nodding toward us mid-session, then turning to whisper behind clipboards. One guy at the water station staring just a beat too long when Matt adjusted my form during deadlifts. Nothing aggressive, just observant. Like people were adding things up in their heads and deciding what kind of story we were. I didn't say anything to Matt about it at first. I didn't want to turn something that felt personal and real into a problem. But I could feel the tension in his body when we trained. Subtle, tight around the shoulders, the way he didn't linger after class anymore. It wasn't just me imagining it. So I brought it up one night after we'd both showered and were curled up on his couch, a half-watched movie flickering on mute in the background. "People are noticing," I said quietly. He didn't look surprised. "Yeah," he said. "I know. Does it bother you?" He sighed, rubbed the back of his neck. "I'd be lying if I said no. This place, the gym scene, it's not always great when it comes to this kind of thing. Especially between a trainer and a client. People talk." I sat up slightly, unsure how to ask what I wanted to ask. "Do you want to stop being whatever this is? To keep work clean?" He turned to look at me, eyes serious but soft. "No," he said immediately. "Not even a little." The relief that washed through me was so strong it caught me off guard. "I just hate the idea of this making things hard for you," he added. "You've been working your ass off." "I'll deal with it," I said. "If you will." He gave me a slow nod, then reached out and pulled me closer, wrapping an arm around my waist until I was half in his lap, head resting against his chest. "I want to keep seeing you," he said quietly, "even if it's not always convenient." "You know," I murmured, "you're way too emotionally well-adjusted for a guy who yells at me about proper lunge depth." He laughed into my hair. We started being more careful in the gym. Matt cut back on the extra touches. I started showing up a few minutes before our sessions instead of hanging around afterward. Our conversations stayed more focused, our banter more subtle. We didn't hide anything. We just didn't invite extra attention. But outside the gym, that's where we were building something real. Friday nights became ours, sometimes his place, sometimes mine. We'd order cheap takeout, watch bad movies, trade playlists. He found out I couldn't cook pasta without burning it. I learned he cried the first time he watched Big Fish and had a soft spot for cheesy 90s rom-coms. It felt easy, comfortable, real. There was one night in particular I won't forget. I had just come over after a brutal workday, meetings back to back, my boss nitpicking everything, my brain fried from hours of staring at spreadsheets. I dropped onto his couch and groaned dramatically, face in my hands. "Tough day?" he asked, handing me a beer. "I don't want to talk about budget forecasts until I die. That's how bad it is." Matt sat beside me, tucked one leg underneath him. "I got you something," he said, reaching into the side drawer of his coffee table. I raised an eyebrow. "If it's a bottle of whiskey, I'm proposing marriage." He pulled out a folded gym towel, embroidered with my initials. "I notice you keep forgetting yours," he said. "Figured I'd get you one that's hard to lose." I took it from him, blinking at the stitching. It was a dumb gift. A small thing, but something about it hit harder than it should have. "You're kind of good at this," I said. "At what?" "This. The whole relationship thing." He looked surprised, then a little shy. "I've messed it up enough times to know what not to do." I leaned into him. "Well, keep doing what you're doing. It's working." That night, we didn't do anything dramatic. No heavy declarations. We just fell asleep, tangled up on his couch, both of us snoring through the end credits of a movie neither of us remembered picking. But in the morning, when he kissed me awake and made scrambled eggs that were a little too runny, I realized I wasn't just falling for him. I already had. Of course, nothing stays easy forever. It happened on a Tuesday. I was walking into the gym when I passed one of the assistant managers, a guy named Darren. Tall, sharp. Always looked like he was trying too hard. I didn't know him well, but I'd seen him around. He managed the trainer schedules, handled client complaints. The kind of guy who always had a Bluetooth headset in, even when he wasn't on a call. He stopped me near the lockers. "Hey, you got a sec?" I blinked. "Yeah? I wanted to ask you something. About Matt." Immediately, my stomach dropped. "Sure," I said carefully. He leaned in slightly, lowered his voice. "Just off the record, has he ever been unprofessional with you? Like outside the scope of training?" I stared at him, pulse spiking. "No," I said, maybe a little too quickly. "Why?" he shrugged, but the kind of shrug that said, "Someone complained. Just making sure everything's above board. We've had a few questions about boundaries lately." "Thanks, man." He clapped me on the shoulder like we were buddies and walked off. I stood there for a second, hands clenched around the strap of my bag. And then I went straight to Matt. He was at the squat rack, mid-set with a client. I waited, tried not to look panicked, tried not to make a scene. When he finally had a break, I pulled him aside, heart pounding. "Darren talked to me," I said quietly. "Asked if you'd been unprofessional." Matt's jaw tightened. "What did you say?" "That you haven't, obviously. But, Matt, someone's talking." He looked over his shoulder toward the front desk, then back at me. "Okay," he said, voice tight. "Then I guess we talk too." And that's when I realized something was about to shift, maybe everything. We didn't speak again that day. Matt had back-to-back sessions, and I had work. I left the gym with a knot in my chest, feeling like something was unraveling, even though nothing had technically happened. Darren hadn't accused him of anything. I hadn't said anything incriminating. But the implication was there now. Suspicion. Eyes. That night, Matt texted me, "Can we talk? Come over." I was there 20 minutes later. He opened the door looking tired. Not physically. He always looked strong, but like someone who'd had to hold their face together for hours longer than they wanted to. "Hey," he said, voice soft. I stepped in, shut the door behind me. "Is this about Darren?" I asked. Matt nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. He pulled me into the office, said there's been chatter, asked if I had any personal relationships with clients that could be seen as a conflict of interest. "What'd you say?" I told him no lines were crossed, that I train clients, and what I do outside the gym is private. He paced for a second, then sat down on the arm of the couch like he couldn't stay still. "But here's the thing," he added. "He didn't look like he bought it." I sank onto the other end of the couch. "You think someone's saying stuff?" "I know it," he said, "and honestly, it could be anyone." "Sharon saw us once outside grabbing coffee. That kid Leo follows me on Instagram and probably saw your comment. It doesn't take much to start rumors." We sat in silence for a moment. "I don't want this to ruin your job," I said finally. He looked at me. "You didn't ruin anything," he said. "If anything, you've made everything better. But I need to figure out how to protect both of us." He ran a hand through his hair, then added, "I've been thinking about ending our sessions." I felt the words hit before I fully processed them. "What?" He looked genuinely torn. "Not because I want to. I don't. But because the longer we keep training together while also being this, the messier it gets." My throat felt tight. "So that's it?" "No, that's not it." He slid closer, his voice steadier now. "I'm not walking away from us, but I don't want to keep putting you in a weird spot. You already had someone questioning you, and that's not fair." I was quiet for a second, trying to untangle what I was feeling. Sad? Frustrated? Maybe both. But mostly I understood. "If we stop the sessions, what does that mean for us?" I asked. He reached out, his fingers brushing mine. "It means we try to build something real, without all the noise." The next day, I emailed the front desk and officially ended my training package. It felt like cutting a cord I didn't want to let go of. Not just because I liked training with Matt, but because it was how we met, how it started. Letting go of that felt like erasing something important, but I knew it was the right call. When I showed up to the gym that week, I still worked out on the same days. I stuck to the routines Matt had taught me. I didn't hover by the squat racks or try to sneak glances when he was training someone else. Okay, maybe I snuck one glance. Or 5. He didn't look at me the way he used to. Not during work hours. He was focused, intentional, professional. But outside the gym, that was ours now. We shifted into something different. More date nights. More mornings where he'd wake me up by tugging the blanket off and handing me coffee. More time just together. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fast. But it was growing. There was this one Sunday morning. We'd both crashed at my place after a night of drinking margaritas with friends. We were lying in bed, both hungover, barely awake. I rolled over and found him just staring at me. "What?" I croaked, eyes half shut. "You always scrunch your nose when you sleep," he said. "That's rude." "No, it's cute," he added, "like you're annoyed at your dreams." I laughed and buried my face in the pillow. And that's when he said it. "I think I'm falling for you." Just like that. No buildup. No hesitation. I lifted my head slowly, suddenly wide awake. He was looking right at me. Calm, but not casual. It was real. "I think I already have," I said quietly. His hand found mine under the blanket. And we stayed like that for a long time, just breathing in the stillness. But even when things are good, life has a way of testing you. 2 weeks later, Matt was called into a meeting. It wasn't just a quick check-in this time. It was formal. With HR, he didn't give me the details at first. Said he needed to figure it out before he said too much. But I could tell it wasn't good. He was quieter that week. More distant. Still affectionate, but distracted. Finally, over dinner, he told me everything. "They're reviewing my contract," he said, pushing food around on his plate. There was a complaint, anonymous, about inappropriate behavior with a client. My stomach sank. "With me?" He nodded. "They didn't name you, but it's pretty obvious. Someone said I was giving special treatment." That I blurred lines. They pulled footage of us training together. Nothing sexual, but apparently just enough for them to review my conduct. I leaned back, unsure what to say. "What can you do?" I already told them we're not training anymore, that we haven't in weeks, that it's not a professional relationship anymore. "And us?" I asked, quietly. He looked me in the eye. I told them that's personal, and not relevant. "And if they disagree?" He sighed, and reached across the table, taking my hand. "Then I deal with it. But I don't regret any of it. You're not a mistake." The way he said it made my chest ache. Because I believed him. But I also knew things might get harder before they got easier. I could tell he was trying to protect me. That was Matt's default. Shoulder the pressure, keep the weight off everyone else. Same way he coached. Same way he kissed. All quiet steadiness. Like if he just held still long enough, everything would fall into place around him. But this wasn't a weight he could lift off us. Not this time. After he told me about the HR meeting, we didn't talk about it again for days. Not because we didn't care, but because neither of us knew what to do with the waiting. It was like living in a suspended moment, where the outcome could swing either way, and pretending it was normal felt easier than holding our breath. We kept dating. Quietly. We didn't post anything. We didn't go out anywhere someone from the gym might see us. We stayed home, mine or his, watched movies, made dumb cocktails with whatever we had in the fridge. And every night before bed, he'd pull me close like he wasn't sure how long he'd get to keep doing that. I started watching him differently during those nights, not in a way that made me love him less, but in a way that made me realize just how much he'd already carved out space in my life. I started thinking about all the small things that had changed since we met. How I'd started sleeping better, eating better, moving through my day without that gnawing sense of restlessness that used to follow me everywhere. He had become part of my rhythm, and I didn't want to lose him to a rumor. The verdict came on a Monday. I was at work when he texted, "Meeting went long. Can I come over later? Need to talk." The way it was phrased, "need to talk," that was never good. I left the office early. By the time he showed up, the sky had turned gray with late afternoon storm clouds. He walked in, soaked from the rain, not bothering to shake off his jacket. Just dropped it on the floor like he didn't have the energy to care. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting for the words. They offered me 2 options, he said, straight to the point. Step down from training, switch to administrative work, or leave. I blinked. Wait, what? He nodded. They're not firing me technically, but they're making it very clear I can't stay on the floor. For dating me? For crossing a boundary, even if it wasn't in violation of policy. They said it's about perception, about trust. I stared at him, not sure whether to feel furious or helpless. What are you going to do? He looked up, eyes tired but steady. I already did it. I quit. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I stepped back without meaning to, like I needed space to process what I'd just heard. You what? He stepped closer, reached out, his voice quiet. I couldn't stay there. Not if it meant hiding you, or pretending this us was some kind of mistake I had to apologize for. I sat down slowly, trying to catch up. You really gave it up? I can train somewhere else, start something new. Hell, maybe I'll finally open my own place. But I couldn't keep looking over my shoulder every time I touched your arm. I couldn't keep pretending you're not the best thing that's happened to me in years. My throat tightened, and I didn't know what to say for a second. Because that's the thing. He didn't say it like he was asking for praise. He said it like it was just a fact. Like choosing me over a job was obvious. And that kind of love? That kind of choice? It wrecked me in the best way. I got up slowly, walked over, and wrapped my arms around him. He melted into the hug like he'd been holding himself up all day for everyone else. But now, finally, he could exhale. I'm sorry you had to do that, I said against his chest. I'm not, he said. Not if it means I get to be with you without hiding. I pulled back, looked him in the eye. So what now? He gave a small, crooked smile. Now, we figure it out together. He took a week off after quitting. Didn't work, didn't job hunt, just slept, cooked, caught up on books, and let himself slow down. I spent most of those nights at his place, sometimes in silence, sometimes talking for hours about nothing important. We started making plans. He had ideas about a private studio, one-on-one sessions, maybe even building something in the warehouse district if we could swing it. I offered to help however I could. Marketing, branding, spreadsheets, even cleaning dumbbells. Maybe I'll make you my first client again, he joked one night. You trying to write off our relationship on your taxes? If I say it's research, maybe. But even as we joked, I could feel something real building beneath it. The kind of foundation that doesn't crack when pressure hits. We were no longer hiding. We were just being. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after he quit, we went back to the gym. Not to work out, just to pick up the last of his stuff. I waited in the car while he went in, but after 10 minutes he texted me, "Come in, it's fine." So I did. The place felt the same. Clanging weights, sweaty floors, EDM playing faintly through the ceiling speakers. But something about walking in next to him this time felt different. Like we weren't sneaking around. Like we had nothing to explain. He nodded at a few people. A couple staffers gave him polite smiles. One even patted him on the back. And then Darren appeared. He walked over, clipboard in hand, like always. Matt met his eyes calmly. Darren paused for a beat, then glanced at me. You must be the client, he said. I held my ground. Yeah, I am, he looked at Matt. I don't agree with how you handled it, but I respect that you didn't lie. Matt nodded once. I never needed your approval. Darren exhaled, then stepped aside. That was it. Matt grabbed his duffel bag and walked out of that place like he owned the ground beneath him. And I followed him. Because that's what you do when someone shows up for you fully, without apology, without pretense. You show up for them right back. 6 months later, I'm standing inside a renovated garage with exposed brick walls, brand new rubber flooring, and one of those giant mirrors that make even beginners feel like they know what they're doing. There's a whiteboard mounted near the entrance with today's workout scribbled in black marker: core burn, supersets plus sweat. And behind me, Matt, sleeveless hoodie, clipboard in hand, smirking like he owns the place, because now he does. After everything with the gym, after the months of uncertainty, he finally did it. Opened his own space. Small, independent, appointment only. No corporate nonsense, no clipboards hiding judgment, no one whispering behind his back about who he's dating. It's his. Ours, in a way. The day he got the keys, he handed me the spare without saying anything. I just looked at it, then at him. "So I'm your assistant now?" I asked. He shrugged. "You're the reason it happened. Least I can do is make you part of it." I didn't argue. We painted the walls ourselves, ordered the equipment piece by piece. I built the website. He handled the programming. And between all the stress and planning, we learned how to be together, not just when things were easy, but when they were stretched, messy, real. We argued a couple times. Nothing big, just little things about schedules or whether the studio needed more lighting. I said yes. He said natural light is enough. But each time, we worked through it, talked it out, listened. It was the healthiest relationship I'd ever been in, and maybe the sexiest. Something about seeing him in his element, confident, focused, calling out reps while sweat dripped down his neck, still does something to me, and he knows it too. "You staring again?" he asks one morning after finishing with a client. I lean against the door frame, sip my coffee, and smirk. Always. He walks over, towel around his neck, and kisses me without thinking. Like it's a reflex now, like it's the most normal thing in the world. Because now, it is. We still laugh about how it started sometimes. The changing room, the kiss, the absolute chaos that followed, the part where he nearly lost his job, the part where I thought I'd be just another gym crush that burned out after a few weeks. But none of that happened. Because instead of running from it, we leaned in. We made space for each other. He's not just my ex-trainer. He's the guy who saw me when I was fumbling and unsure and sweaty and new, and decided I was still worth something. Worth sticking around for. Worth starting over for. And I'm the guy who kissed him first. Best impulse I ever had. A few weeks ago, he added something to the studio wall, right above the mirror. A framed quote, printed in block letters. "Eventually something you love is going to break your heart." I raised an eyebrow when I saw it. "Wasn't that the line from that poetry book?" He nodded. "Yeah, but I like the second part better." "There's a second part?" He leaned in, pressed his forehead to mine, and said, "But it's worth it anyway." And I believed him. Because somehow, the changing room closeness turned into something solid, something lasting, something real.